that just about past. So I shall start, and if anybody else joins us, then we can let them in as and well. So as you may see with the message across the screen, this Zoom session is being recorded for those who can't attend. But just to clarify, the recording will only show me as the speaker and not all the participants. So I would like to offer you a warm welcome to this briefing session, providing an overview of the funding opportunities available through Quantic to support the development of the Hub's imaging technologies. A few housekeeping points, obviously the fact that we are recording this. I would ask that if you've not already turned your mics off or been muted, then please do so. And there will be time at the end of the briefing for some Q&A. I would ask that you add questions to the chat function, and I will address these at the end. So as you may be aware, Quantic have officially launched 2 initiatives from our Industrial Partnership Fund to collaborate and bridge the gap between research and technology innovation in industry. Today, I'll be providing an overview of these funds, providing details of the criteria and eligibility, the application and evaluation process, and again, with some times to answer any questions that you may have. From the £4 million Partnership Resource Fund pot in Phase 1, 39 projects were awarded, collaborating with 31 industrial organisations. And by collaborating with industry, our researchers developed 13 prototype demonstrators, secured 14 patents and 1 licence, with a number of commercial deals achieved or actually in progress. So this demonstrates the strength of collaborating with industry, and some of the successes are, as you see here. To get an idea of the type of projects that can be funded, we can look at some examples from the Phase 1 funding that led to products, examples being the gas imaging camera in collaboration with M² lasers, exploring fluorescence lifetime imaging with Hariba as an application for Robert Henderson SPAD technology, inter-satellite communication using micro LEDs in partnership with Aurelia. So just to provide some examples of what can be funded and what has been funded. In Phase 2, we have received a commitment from existing industry partners to continue to work together to achieve our mission to bring quantum imaging technology to bear on real-world imaging challenges across the industrial, scientific, security and consumer markets. Quantic has again dedicated £4 million to support the development of new technologies and to collaborate with industry to accelerate the commercialisation of existing technologies. While today focuses on Quantic funding, I must stress that our business development team is here to support our researchers in acquiring external funding and your involvement in consortia such as the Industry Strategy Challenge Fund, other Innovate funds and other external funding. Okay, so you will by now be aware of the Accelerated Development Fund, or ADF, which is a £2 million fund providing opportunities to increase the pipeline of new technology into the Hub. Targeted at academics not currently within the Quantic community, an open call was launched in April 2020, designed to ensure we remain responsive to new developments in the field of quantum imaging. A further call is scheduled to take place along similar timelines in the spring of 2021. But the focus of today's discussion is on the other £2 million of funding available to collaborate directly with industry and new venture opportunities. So the Industrial Partnership Fund has 3 themes designed to support the commercial uptake of technologies developed by our existing Quantic research groups, either through collaboration with industry or new venture creation. I want to focus on both the Proof of Concept and New Ventures initiative, but will briefly touch on the Challenge-led fund. In the coming months, members of our industry peer group, the Market Opportunities Panel, and strategic industry partners will identify and define thematic challenges and highlight its potential. Once these challenges have been identified, our academic community will be encouraged to engage with industrial consortia on providing solutions via imaging technologies and expedited through co-funded projects. Think along the lines of a mini industrial strategy challenge fund. But today I want to focus on two elements of the Industry Partnership Fund, and that's the proof of concept and new ventures. So the proof of concept, IPF, are short projects between quantic researchers and industry to accelerate the uptake of imaging technology. The fund should be seen as seed funding for follow-on activity, and that's quite key, and I'll touch on that later on. So the funding stream is most similar to the Phase 1 Partnership Resource Fund. You can see here that the maximum award is £60,000, and that's obviously 80% FEC. The maximum duration is up to 12 months. Now, that's dependent on the co-funding from the industry partner. So we expect this time industry partners to make matching in-kind and or in cash contributions. But this time there's more emphasis on the cash contribution than there was in Phase 1 of Quantic. Part of the reason for that ties in with the duration here, which is very much dependent on cash funding. If you think of an RA's time and overheads, roughly works out about £10,000 to £11,000 per month. So if we think of the Quantic award, £60,000, you're talking about a 6-month duration. So obviously the more cash injection or contribution from the industry partners, obviously the longer the project can last to meet your outcomes. And what are the outcomes that we're expecting? Well, what we really want to do is, assuming all goes well with the project, then it will sit the technology in a good place for then follow-on activity, some external funding. And that's an important element for the evaluation of projects, a stage that we'll look at a little later on. So the projects need to be in the field of quantum imaging technologies and aligned with Quantic's vision to accelerate the commercial deployment. Project teams must consist of at least one industrial partner and at least one Quantic academic partner. As this fund is to develop the hub's technologies, a Quantic co-investigator must be included, whether they're lead or a co-I on the project, but they must be included. Therefore, funding your group or academics at another institution can work, but as long as a Quantic co-investigator is involved. So as I touched on earlier, industry partners will need to commit to at least 50% resource to the project, preferably in cash, which again helps with the duration of the project, but also we feel will give more buy-in for follow-on activities. If any in-kind contribution is included, it will need to be verifiable to the project. All funds will be awarded to academic institutions. So similar again for those that are aware of the Partnership Resource Fund, all the funding goes to the industry partners, to the academic partners, sorry, and not to industry. The eligibility, of course, follows standard EPSRC rules. So examples of funding for equipment cannot be above £10,000. What we'll touch on a little later on is the other eligible and non-eligible costs, but all of these can be seen on the guidance notes, and I'll provide a link for that a little later on. A final point is that the applications will be reviewed by Quantic's industry peer panel, the market opportunities panel, with rolling quarterly deadlines aligned to when the panel meet. So you'll see here on the screen that the mock panel are meeting in February, May and September of next year. So we expect applications to be in to Quantic, to me, around 2 weeks in advance of the meetings to allow sufficient time for those select few from Market Opportunities panel to have a review of this before the actual discussion at the meeting. And I'm happy to work with partners to support the application process. I'm going to now provide a brief overview of the evaluation criteria, but a more detailed description again is contained within the proof of concept guidance notes that you'll find on the Quantic website at the link below. Hopefully that's easily transferable. So all projects will be marked against the following 3 evaluation criteria. The first is the potential impact or opportunity, and that includes things like market size, market opportunity, the impact. Is there a market for this technology? What size is that market? Assuming the outcomes of the project are met, will the technology provide a competitive edge? Some of this may need input from the industry partner, or will need input from the industry partner. And again, I'm happy to be involved in the discussions there. The other element of this is how does the industry partner propose to exploit the outcome of the project? The second element of it is clarity. Clarity on the objectives. In other words, what is actually going to be done throughout the project and by whom? Make sure you address the milestones and risks. And what I will say, having looked at several applications in the last few years, don't make it too scientific. It's not to be a scientific report. There will be some people evaluating this who may not be experts in the particular area of your application. So just make sure it's really clear on what you're wanting to achieve. Also, as part of the clarity is the soundness of the concept and credibility of the proposed approach and feasibility of the research. Is there industry partners' appetite? Have other industry bodies shown an interest in this area? These types of things will be covered. And then the third and final part of the evaluation criteria is quality and efficiency of the implementation. So that includes things like value for money, company commitment, in particular the evidence that a company will take the project forward if the proof of concept is successful. Another differential factor between this and the previous Phase 1 Partnership Resource Fund is that we require a letter of support from all industry partners. And again, included in that letter should be the commitment both in this particular project, but for follow-on activities. Also, we need to look at this aspect in terms of the appropriateness of the participants within the consortium to deliver and exploit the results. Don't just have an industry partner for the sake of it. They really should be justifiable participants. But again, all of this is contained within the proof of concept guidance notes that you will find on the website via the link here. So that's the proof of concept that I've covered. Again, if you have any questions, I would urge you to put them in using the chat function. But now I will move on to the next element or strand of the Industry Partnership Fund, which is new ventures. Yes, new ventures. So you may have got that this is to help develop new business propositions that can fast track the commercialization of the products and systems around the field of quantum imaging. And the New Ventures Fund aims to fund market feasibility studies and support business plan development to bring spin-outs to fruition. Again, you'll see on the screen the maximum award, the type of projects, and the expected outcome. So a little look again at the eligibility criteria. So the projects, as I say, must be in the field of quantum imaging and focused on supporting the development of a new venture intended to bring quantum imaging to the market. Applicants can be from an individual or team of founders, and university spin-out development teams are encouraged to apply. This funding is targeted to pre-incorporation activities and must be administered by an organisation eligible to receive EPSRC funding, so academic institutions. But the key point to that is funding will not be awarded to an incorporated company, not even if you've got a letterhead, so I need to be clear on that. Applicants are eligible to apply to this fund to supplement other seed fundings or other schemes that might be in the same area of supplementing new ventures, but there will be a requirement to disclose any other additional funding that you're looking to use this against. And applicants must provide letters of support from the host institution and confirming the availability of any co-funding as part of this application. And this is a key element to the assessment process. Again, similar to the proof of concept, the new ventures applications will be assessed and reviewed by the Market Opportunities Panel. And so what can actually be eligible to be funded as part of this? So prototype development, feasibility studies, market assessments, business development plans. There's other costs such as travel and subsistence. If you're looking for that, a justification is required as to why you would need this, and applicants must demonstrate that these costs are directly linked to the commercial objectives of the project. The appointment of consultants or other subcontractors to conduct any of the proposed work that will be carried out by the host institution must first be approved by Quantic. And one ineligible cost that we'll touch on just now is patent costs are ineligible. So again, let's have a little look at the evaluation criteria. So first of all, the proposed business opportunity. So it has to be relevant to Quantic's mission to bring quantic imaging products to market. The value proposition. So what problem does the company propose to solve for its customers, and how unique is that solution? The market size, growth potential, and the proposed market as far as can be established at this stage. And the IP position and freedom to operate must be clear. The proposed project, so the credibility of the proposed approach and feasibility of the proposed activity will be evaluated as part of this section. The relevance of the project to the state of the development of the proposed company. For example, we expect proposals to develop a business plan or prototype product to be based on a robust, evidenced valued proposition. What's the likelihood that the proposed project will increase the prospects of establishing a viable business? And also within this, what's the value for money? That has to be clear. And the third element of this, the quality and commitment to implementation. So applicant commitment is a must here, in particular evidence that the applicant will take the project forward if the new ventures application is successful. The appropriateness of the participants to deliver the project and exploit commercialization, and the robustness of IP protection arrangements. So all of that will need to be looked at and considered prior to an application being submitted. And again, for this, you will see the eligibility criteria and evaluation criteria as part of the guidance notes that can be found again on the Quantic website under the partnership resource section, if you follow that link, or indeed take a note of that link. So that's a bit of a whirlwind tour of the two new strands of the Industry Partnership Fund that has just now been launched. But I'm very happy now to take any questions, and I'll have a little look in the chat. So we're a bit short on questions just now, but happy to take any other points, or indeed, Miles, if you wish to chip in, if there's anything that I've not touched on, or perhaps even any questions that you may have yourself.
Thank you, Kevin, and well done when you're in your Zoom recovery mode there. I just want to say that, you know, as an academic in Quantic, that all of us fellow academics in Quantic, to some extent, have to take on some of this responsibility. And you know, I know from personal experience, Kevin is incredibly willing, able, and supportive in our approaches to companies. So, you know, if you think there's a company that is interested in, you know, your technology, then I would urge you to give Kevin a ring, And I think in these times of COVID, that we all have to recognize that we're going to need to be more proactive than we may otherwise have been. But actually, my limited experience is that actually the companies are still open for business. And actually, in some ways, now is a really good time to engage them, not just in relation to the funding schemes that Quantic is offering, but of course, Kevin is here to help us all try and put together consortia for what we think will be another round of the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, ISCF. And as we look forward in translating our technologies into the real world, it's those funding schemes that we're going to need to engage with, and that requires us to start building the consortia now. But I think don't expect the consortia to come to us. We need to get out there. I hope that was okay, Kevin.
It certainly was, and actually I would thank you for that input, but add to it as well that I perhaps wouldn't worry too much about what fund your project idea comes into at this stage. Obviously, hopefully today will give you a good idea or overview of that, but I do encourage you just to pick up the phone or organise a Zoom chat with me to talk about a potential proposal that you have, and then we can look to see the best way to exploit that, whether that is through Quantic's own internal funding or indeed any external funding. Also, don't worry too much if you don't have an industry partner. If you do, that's great. But I'm here to support that process as well, and either speaking to the industry partners that you may have and dealing with maybe some of the awkward side of the conversations, such as funding or commitment from the industry partner, but also we have a number of close industry partners and in contact with many others who may be suitable for a particular application or proposal that you may have. So I would definitely encourage you to get in touch and we can discuss any of these. So I now have a couple of questions that's come through the chat function. Thank you, Peter Smith. You have a question about the new venture fund. What do you see as realistic timescales to go from first thoughts to fund release? And your reason for asking that question is to understand how fully developed or alternatively how embryonic ideas can be. I would suggest that, and again, feel free to get in touch with me and we can talk about this, even if it is just an initial idea. But I think in terms of application process, we want to make sure that due diligence and consideration has been done in advance of an application coming through. Again, that will be noticeable in the review of each of the applications. So if you've got an initial idea, we've got this funding for another couple of years. So if you have an embryonic idea, do get in touch. Let's explore that. Let's see what's actually needed to then take that through before an application is funded. And again, we've got the rolling quarterly deadlines. So once we have drafted up the application form, then we'll be able to know the timelines and to align it to which market opportunities panel meeting. Beyond that, once it's approved, if indeed it is approved, then the project can commence shortly after. I hope that answers your question, Peter. Rod, welcome, Rod Murray-Smith. You have says that you have some funding coming in for a project with Google, with a couple of other Quantic academics. Can you take such existing funds into account as a contribution for these projects, even if the funding came in before the panel meeting? I'm going to take a stab at that question, but I would be happy if Miles wants to come into this, or indeed Sarah. I think it wouldn't do any harm including that in any applications that you're working, especially with the likes of Google. It would do absolutely no harm, and that you've got funding there. In terms of the fact that it's come in before the panel meeting itself, I will pass that over to Miles if I can. Sorry, Miles.
So I must say that's not something I've explicitly thought about. My instant gut reaction would be that would seem to be out with the scheme as defined, since essentially the scheme is that, you know, if the project already exists without this funding, what would be the additionality? And so I think you would have to be a fresh application with some articulation from the company as to how that would be supported. But I think what I think we probably should do is have a chat about this in the leadership meeting and probably management board, and get back to you, Rod, with an official answer. But it's a good question that you ask.
I mean, I suspect that if things go well, they've funded a couple of months of work initially, and I suspect that if things go well, there'll be more coming.
Well, in which case, then it would be make a wonderful new application, I would suspect, where you've essentially de-risked some aspect of it prior to the application. So I think you would just consider
on it being UK. I mean, Google have UK bits, but this is a US bit of Google. Do we have any constraints on where the companies are from?
I think historically we've always said they have to have it's got to ultimately bring benefit to the UK in some way. So you've got to articulate the benefit that it would bring either to the UK element of that company, or what would be the pathways to exploitation and impact, and how might the UK benefit from that. I don't want to sound jingoistic, but effectively.
But if it was something like, obviously it could be something that goes in every Android phone, which half of the population have.
So, I would urge you to put together a proposal and bring it to the MOP.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, and then take it from there.
Thanks, Rod and Miles. I have a further question from Martin Dawson. Hi, Martin. And you speak about who, under the New Ventures Fund, is eligible to receive staff costs to cover the time involved. You also mention that Strathclyde has the CEO designated scheme for this example. If I'm picking you up right on this would tie into where I spoke about the appointment of consultants or subcontractors, which is feasible. It obviously has to have prior approval though, and this should be mentioned in the application form. I'm not too sure if that touches on everything, but do feel free, Martin, to give a supplementary question, or indeed I'm happy to speak to you offline on this, unless other people would like clarity on it. Okay, Martin, I'll pick that up with you offline. We'll have a little chat on that. I recognise that we're a bit tight on time, and that's now 2 o'clock. But what I'll do is thank you very much for attending the session. Hopefully you got enough of at least a start on the idea behind and the criteria behind each of the new ventures and partnership and proof of concept funds. But do have a look at the website where you'll see more detail on eligibility criteria and eligible costs and what's ineligible. But I would urge you to get in touch with me if you have any ideas, and then we can see how we can flesh that out and develop it. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you for those who are now watching the pre-recording. Do get in touch and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.